Greetings, brothers and sisters. We are now at the time of the end when the books are being unsealed and mysteries are being revealed. The Creator has hidden many mysteries within His Word, which is all His hidden wisdom. Now these matters were to be searched out. And when I'm talking about the books are sealed, it speaks of this in Daniel 12:4. But you, Daniel, roll up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. And for those who know about the beast prophecies that were foretold about Babylon, well, we see that those prophecies span all the way from the time of Daniel all the way through until the very end. And we're at the end now, and that's why these knowledge is increased and these books are being revealed. Now this also is the exact time the Creator foretold He would bring about the end of the beast kingdoms, including this false prophet. What can we observe? Well, this occurs at the end of that 6th day. Remember, 1 day equals 1,000 years, representing 6,000 years. We see this occurs before the beginning of the millennial reign of Yeshua. We see that the beast, Babylon, and the false prophet, representing Islam, are thrown into the lake of burning sulfur. And that word there, brimstone, is the word for sulfur, and is spoken of in Revelations 19:20. Now this is very reminiscent of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. We see they have the same fate in store for them. Now in Isaiah chapter 13 verse 19, he even foretold this. And Babylon, the beauty of kingdoms, the glory of the Chaldeans' pride, will be as when Elohim overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, this is not the teaching we're going to talk about today. We're going to discuss something quite deep and profound. Yeshua stated these words in Mattityahu, meaning the gift of Elohim, chapter 7, verse 21. He stated, "Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven." Now, this is a deep matter, and it has to do with the will of the Father and entering heaven. And what we see here, what do we observe? Well, people are saying to Yeshua, Master, Master. But not everyone who says to Yeshua, Master, Master, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Now this is the place, we're told, the heavenly kingdom, where the Father resides. Now, to explore this deeper, we are going to do as the word declares in 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 15. Do your best to present yourself to Elohim as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth, or divides the word of truth. So basically it is up to us to correctly handle the word of truth, which we'll observe is twofold in nature. We are to investigate these matters and discern the word. Now we are going to start with these two questions, and by the end of this we'll be able to understand what the will of the Father truly is and how important it is that we are doing this. Number one, we'll define what a will is, and specifically the Father's will. And number two, is there a difference between the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of earth? Well, we need to investigate this, and we'll let the word of truth declare this. Then we conclude this matter, and you will be amazed to discover that things are much deeper than we can envision. Now join me as we reveal this matter and let His word of truth declare His wisdom. Right, let's start and define what a will is. Basically, in very simple terms, it is a legal declaration, a lawful one, of the mind of the one who has the property or the estate to be disposed of after one's death. And a will is comprised of these elements. Number one, written by the owner, the one with the rights to the inheritance. Now, for those awakened ones and those covenant keepers, we know that the Creator wrote His 10 Commandments with His own finger. So, number one, written by the owner, the Creator. Now, number two, it describes the conditions for the inheritance, as described on His 10 Commandments. Now, remember, that fourth commandment has both the seal of the Creator, His name, His territory and domains. And notice, the heavens and the earth. And it is the only commandment we were clearly told not to forget about. Because you see, this is His hidden wisdom. And number three, must be witnessed by 2 witnesses. Now this is a deep topic, and we're going to look at these 2 witnesses in a moment, right? But we see it has these 3 elements: must be written by the owner, got the conditions for the inheritance, and must be witnessed by 2 witnesses. Now remember, in Ephesians chapter 1 verse 11, it states, also we have obtained an inheritance, having been predestined according to His purpose, who works all things after the counsel of His will. And this is deep. And also in Psalms chapter 33 verse 12, blessed is the nation whose Elohim is Jehovah, the people whom He has chosen for His own inheritance. Now that we've laid some groundwork, let's talk deeper about these 2 witnesses. Now this has many dimensions, because you see, it is prescribed by the Creator a commandment that every matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. And we will observe that the Creator uses 2 witnesses at a minimum on every matter. Now let's look at 2 examples. We see with the crucifixion of the Messiah, notice there were 2 witnesses, one on the left and one on the right. And we notice that the one on the right symbolizes the one who regrets, repents, and is forgiven. Now also, we see these 2 Malachims, 2 angels, witnessing the resurrection. There's 2 examples. And the reason for this, for 2 witnesses, is the fact that they are for a testimony and a witness for the Creator. Now He has also given us 2 eyes and 2 ears to hear these things and be His witnesses. Now before we begin, just remember Hebrews chapter 10 verse 28. It states, anyone who has set aside the Torah of Moshe dies without mercy on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. So you see, we're not to set aside the Torah. Keep this in mind because it'll be important in a moment. And we will observe His 2 witness pattern is multi-dimensional in nature, and He's very consistent on this matter. Now they are discussed in Revelations chapter 11, and we're told that they are witnesses, and we're also told they are prophesying. Now firstly, we must realize that they are a mystery of sorts, and metaphorical, symbolizing something much deeper. We'll see this in a moment. Now also remember, Daniel understood that it was the Creator who revealed mysteries unto His servants. And to understand this mystery, we must compare and look at both accounts of this. And we see they are first discussed in Zechariah 4. So you see, we're not to put aside the Torah or the prophets. And what we notice, just like those 2 trees in the garden, they are not literal trees, they are metaphorical. Now we see there are these 2 olive trees and a golden menorah. And we see and we're told that this is describing something that is spiritual in nature. And we're told the following. So He said to me, this is the word of Yehovah to Zerubbabel, not by might nor by power, but by my Ruach, says Yehovah Sebaot, or Yehovah of armies. So we see It's speaking about the Word, and it's speaking about the Spirit. Keep this in mind, because this will be important in a moment. Now, these two olive trees are representing Israel and Judah, his covenant people, his witnesses. And let's not forget, brothers and sisters, there are many places in the Word where we are compared on the trees. I'll just give you a few examples. Romans chapter 11, verse 24. After all, if you were cut out of an olive tree that is wild by nature, and contrary to nature were engrafted into a cultivated olive tree, how much more readily will these, the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? So you see, we are being grafted into the natural olive tree. So you see the tree, these olive trees are his people. And are also in Judges chapter 9, verse 8. One day the trees went out to anoint a king for themselves. They said to the olive tree, "Be our king." So you see, these trees represent us. And also, James chapter 3, verse 12. My brothers and sisters, can a fig tree bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can salt spring produce fresh water. So you see, fig trees, you see, olives come from olive trees. And this is speaking about brothers and sisters. It's speaking about us. Now also, we see there was one golden menorah. And we notice that in the first temple, it was the menorah who lit up the temple, where the Shekinah's glory was. And we see that the Ruach left the corrupted temple, meaning man. So now we notice in the end there are two menorahs. Now, when you understand that the menorah represents the temple, the light that was provided in the temple, and we know the temple is to do with the new creation, the new man. And in John chapter 8, verse 12, he says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. You see, Yeshua is the light of the world, and Yeshua is the menorah. Now, remember, Yeshua is holding the 7-branch menorah, the 7 ruachs of wisdom in his right hand. And he stated, not by might, but by my ruach. Meaning this vision was spiritual in nature and has to do with building the spiritual temple, the new Adam. And we see that their purpose is for witnessing and testifying, and they are prophesying. Now we are warned not to put aside the Torah. We read that earlier. Now listen carefully. The Torah and the prophets, what did Yeshua stated? Well, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Now that word Mattityahu in Hebrew means the gift of Elohim. Do not think that I have come to abolish the Torah or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Now, we're going to talk about what it means to fulfill them. And you see, he is talking about two here, the Torah and the prophets. Just like the Word and the Ruach, there are two of them. Now, Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20 says, to the Torah and to the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because they have no light. So keep that in mind, brothers. Now, we also have these 2 loaves of bread, symbolizing the house of Israel and Judah, the covenant people. And this occurred on the appointed time, Shavuot, and it has to do with the harvest. Now remember that Shavuot is the exact same day as he confirmed the old covenant, the Torah, his 10 commandments. And we see in likewise, right, on this same day, he confirmed the new covenant promises. And that was, the law was to be written within the minds and the hearts of the people by the Ruach HaKodesh. So this occurred 2 times, and it was this 50th day, symbolizing the Jubilee cycle and the time of setting the captives free. Now that is deep. Now remember, brothers and sisters, Yeshua stated, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of Elohim. This means the Torah and the prophets and the new covenant writings. Because you see, all scripture is Elohim's breed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the servant of Elohim may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. Now also, on Shavuot, the same day he confirmed the old and new covenants, his 10 commandments. Right? They were confirmed. The new covenant was through the Ruach HaKodesh, the works of the Spirit. Now, finally, these 2 tablets of the commandments, the Asheret Hadibrot, written by the finger of the Creator. Now, this is important to keep in mind because they represent the terms of the covenant. They are witnesses and a testimony. And observe, there are 2 cherubims. They guard and witness to the transgression of the commandments. And in Genesis, remember chapter 3, verse 24, so he drove out the man and placed at the east of the garden the cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. A flaming sword, this represents Elohim's righteous word. And the way to the tree of life is through the word. And they are guarding the way back to the garden, back to paradise. Now, in regards to this will, we are told that it is necessary to prove the death of the one who made it. Now, this is spoken in Hebrews chapter 9, and it goes into the law, and it's quite a deep book. And by the way, it's the same will Yeshua is speaking of in Mattityahu chapter 7, verse 21, the very premise of this teaching. And we're told in Hebrews, right, chapter 9, it goes into great detail about this, and it talks about the will and establishing the death of the one who made it, and that this will not come into effect until the one who made it has died, and it cannot be executed while he is still alive. Now, this is quite deep. And of course, the word is referring to the Torah here, his 10 commandments, because this has always been the atonement for man's transgressions. Okay, because we're transgressing the Father's commandments. And also, we're told in 1 John chapter 5 and verse 7 that they are free that bear witness in the heaven, and it says the Father, the Word, and the Ruach HaKodesh. And remember that the Word became flesh and tabernacled amongst us. Okay? And we're told in like manner they are free that bear witness in the earth. So free that bear witness in heaven and free that bear witness in the earth. And we're told it is the water, the ruach, the water, and the blood. And this is spoken of in John chapter 19, verse 34. And we know when Yeshua was pierced for our transgressions, that his blood poured out upon the earth. And we're told at that very moment in Matthew 27 that the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, the earth shook, and the rock split. So imagine the blood poured out upon where the rock split. And it has allusion to the temple, which always has to do with where the ark of his covenant is, his 10 commandments. And we know that the blood is physical evidence, just like Abel's blood cried out upon the earth. Messiah's blood cries out upon the earth. And we're told his blood is in the earth. Now, we'll take a look and we'll talk about this prophecy written in advance. Messiah has stated that he has come to fulfill all things, including all prophecy. And we saw that a lot of prophecy was fulfilled with his first coming, his first appointed times. He fulfilled over 300 prophecies and counting in that day. He will complete and fulfill all remaining prophecy when he returns the second time. Now, recognizing this is key. This is what he meant when he said, I did not come to abolish the Torah or the prophets. In fact, don't even think this, he said. He came to fulfill it. Now, we have spoken in depth about these two witnesses, and we see their purpose is to witness and to prophesy. And we are told they have been prophesying in the earth for 3.5 days. Now, let's keep that in mind. Now, realizing that this is speaking of both the Torah, which is based on his 2 tablets of the testimony, his commandments, and the prophets, who he foretold their faith and destiny if they did not keep these. We can begin to see the dimensions of this. Now we see these time periods spoken of in the word, in the prophecy. It speaks of this 1260 days, this 42 months, this 3.5 year period. And they're all mathematical in nature and have to do with time. And we observe that the ancient calendars that they use were based on the 360-day cycle. And the creator did say they would go astray as to everything. And no wonder. Now, we also should observe that these periods relate to prophecy concerning the beast kingdoms of Babylon. Now in Daniel chapter 12:7, he was told, "And I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the stream. He raised his right hand and his left hand towards heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it would be for a time, times, and a half a time, and that when the shattering of the power of the set apart people comes to an end, all these things will be finished." So you see, this is the time to do it prophecy. So this time, times, and a half a time equals 3.5 days. And it is the exact same time those two witnesses have been prophesying. Now when we apply this 1 day to a year principle that the Creator told us not to forget about, well, we get this period of 3,500 years. Now if we calculate this 3,500 years and divide it by his jubilees, and remember 50 is the year of Jubilee, well, we get this period of 70 jubilees. Now that's quite amazing, because for those who recognize this number, it is the number to do with Babylonian captivity. And we have seen before that Israel, his people, have been in Babylonian captivity 2 times, spoken of by the prophet who foretold this, Jeremiah, and also Daniel foretold about Israel's 70-week prophecy to do with those sabbatical years. Now, what do we observe? Well, we see this overlapping period of time can be measured in 70 jubilees. And do you notice? Under Babylonian captivity. Now remember, in the end, the Creator has been calling his people out of Babylon, which is a mystery. And what we should observe is that he's revealing these mysteries as we speak. Now, we again see this pattern to do with witnessing. There are 3 periods of times the people were under Babylonian captivity, all because of disobedience and not keeping the covenant. Now it speaks about this witness pattern in Deuteronomy, or Devarim, which means the words, right? The words he spoke, the Torah and the prophets. And it stated, "A single witness shall not suffice against a person for any crime or any wrongdoing in connection with an offense that he has committed. And this offense has to do with transgressing his commandments." And it states, "Only on the evidence of 2 witnesses or of 3 witnesses shall a charge be established." And remember, brothers and sisters, this same principle is within the new covenant in 2 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 1. "This is my 3rd time I am coming to you. Every matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses." We have covered a lot so far. Now that we have a better understanding of what the will of the Father entails, and we see that this is quite deep and profound, we're going to delve deeper into the meaning of what Yeshua meant by these words, "Only he who does the will of my Father will enter the kingdom of heaven." Is there a difference? Well, you'll be amazed at what the word describes about this. To understand this, we need to go back to the prophecies surrounding the new heavens and the new earth. Now notice there are 2 distinct territories. And remember, the Creator has already foretold so much in his word, and it's all prophecy. Now the context to this is quite important, and we are to rightly divide the word. Notice that the fulfillment of these prophecies occur at the end of the millennial reign, right? Meaning this 1,000 years we see that Satan is judged and destroyed in the lake of burning sulfur. And notice the great white judgment occurs, right? And after which we see the fulfillment of the new heavens and the new earth. So this happens at the very end. And the word is very clear in this matter. This is key to understanding what we're about to read. Now let's quickly compare the words of these prophecies spoken of in Isaiah 65 and Revelations 21. I'll start off in verse 17 in Isaiah 65. See, I will create a new heavens and a new earth. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind. Right? And if we read Revelations 21, verse 21, chapter 21, verse 21, we see the same. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. So we see it's talking about the same things. And also in verse 18. Well, first let's make a distinction here between the heavens and the earth. Well, what do we notice here? Well, there are two different dominions, of course. We know that the heavens is where the Creator and the angels reside. And remember, this was the place where the watchers resided, those who from heaven came to earth. And we're told their leader is Azazel. Now this is the exact same name associated with the Day of Atonement, the goat, and this is spoken of in Leviticus 16. Vayikra means in Hebrew, and he, Elohim, called. And also the earth. Well, the earth is the habitation of humankind, where the watchers descended. So it is speaking about this creation too, and these two different areas are being spoken about. Now, in verse 18 of Isaiah 65, it says, But be glad and rejoice forever in what I will create. For I will create Jerusalem to be a delight and its people a joy. Now, what do we observe in Revelations 21, verse 2? I saw the set-apart city, the new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from Elohim, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. So you see, Isaiah is prophesying the exact same thing, and here it is being fulfilled. And notice, Jerusalem is coming down out of heaven, from the heavens, from Elohim. And notice it's coming to the earth. Now, we'll also read verse 20 of Isaiah 65, and it gives us some more details about the earth. What we read here is, Never again will there be in it an infant who lives but a few days, or an old man who does not live out his years. So what we're talking about here is children that grow old, and there seems to imply that they're going to live for much longer. And in verse 23, we read again, They will not labor in vain, nor will they bear children, doomed to misfortune, for they will be a people blessed by Yehovah, they and their descendants with him. Okay, so what it is telling us about here is something quite deep. And remember, we've just read that those who live on the earth have children. And what did Messiah state about those who participate in the resurrection? Well, in Matthew 22, verses 29, it stated, You are wrong, because you neither know the scriptures nor the power of Elohim. For in the resurrection they will neither marry nor be given in marriage, but are like the angels in heaven. So you see, we're talking about something spiritual here. And also it states in Philippians chapter 3, But our citizenship is in heaven, and from it we wait a Savior, the Lord Yeshua the Messiah, who will transform our lowly body to be like his glorious body, by the power that enables him to subject all things to himself. And also we're told in 1 Corinthians, I tell you this, brothers, flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven, nor does the perishable inherit the imperishable. So we see there is clear the word that those who live on earth are given in marriage and have children. Finally, brothers and sisters, we will conclude in this matter. Let's ponder on this information, and let's be like the Bereans, who were more noble character, for they examined the word to see what was spoken was true. And we have seen from the word of truth exactly what the Father's will is. It is simply to keep all these 10 commandments, which he wrote personally, twice in fact. The 4th commandment has both the seal of the Creator, his name, Yehovah, his title, the Creator, and notice his territories. And there are 2 mentioned, the heavens and the earth. And also remember that this was the commandment he commanded us to remember. And he said that the Sabbath was a sign between him and his people. And meaning, remember, we're not to forget it. And it is because of obedience and trusting in the Creator. And we see that he has witnessed to this will by 2 witnesses. And notice that is multi-dimensional in nature. And we can see that there is a major difference between the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom upon the earth. So we see that in the heavens, they will be like the angels, spiritual. They will live forever. They are not given in marriage, and they have no children. And we see upon the earth, we're speaking about humankind, the new Adam. They live a long time. They are given in marriage. They have children and descendants. And also, let's remember these words. Ephesians chapter 1 verse 5. He predestined us for adoption to sonship, for Yeshua the Messiah, in accordance with his pleasure and his will.